You're listening to the Dynamic Thinking Project podcast. This is episode 7 and part 3 of our short series about unhappiness, or why people are not happy. So let's get started. Hey everyone, this is Adam Musalli here. Welcome to the Dynamic Thinking Project podcast. If this is your first time listening, then thanks for coming. This podcast is released every Friday, and show notes are found at the website, themindtechinstitute.com. It's all one word. Come back often and feel free to add this podcast to your favorite RSS feed or iTunes. You can also follow me on Twitter and Facebook. All links are in the show notes and website. And now, let's get into the show. This is the last episode of our short series about unhappiness, and I would say this is the most important episode in this short series. In this episode, we're going to talk about depression amongst youth and also explain the differences between generations. According to Google Analytics, estimates about 78% of people listening to this episode are under the age of 35. In business psychology and marketing, this demographic of suggestible young people, they are called millennials or Generation Y. A millennial is everyone born after 1980. And of course, that includes myself and many of my listeners. Millennials now outnumber every other generation. However, according to multiple studies and surveys, such as the American Psychological Association and Harris Interactive, millennials, are the most depressed generation ever. Yes. According to Psychology Today, the suicide rate amongst young adults has tripled since the 1950s. And terrifyingly, suicide is now the second most common cause of death amongst college students. Between 2004 and 2014, the number of clinically depressed teenagers increased by more than 500,000, and 3/4 of whom were women. Also, every year, more and more millennials are taking time off work and are seeking help for mental health issues. An even greater number report extremely low job satisfaction and say they experience difficulty maintaining relationships. Young people get a lot of criticism and disapproval. The older generation have always experienced juvenoia. Juvenoia is a fear of hostility directed at the younger generation or towards the youth culture in general. This is not new. Baby boomers born just after the war. That's from the early to mid-1940s and the end of 1960 to 1964. Baby boomers have strong work ethics and believed that the amount of hours worked should be directly relational to their income. Baby boomers heavily envied the generation that came after them, which is Generation X. They were more independent. They changed their careers more often and believed in fair work and fair balance. And now it's all happening once again. Baby boomers and Generation Xers alike are resenting Generation Y, which are the millennials. But do previous generations look down upon us, Generation Y or millennials, just because we're different, or is there something else? Even Time magazine has criticized the millennials generation in its May 9th, 2013 edition, calling us lazy, and the title was Millennials, the me generation. Narcissists who still live with their parents. Well, I enrolled in the military when I was 17, and was completely living on my own at the age of 19. So that didn't apply on everyone. Nevertheless, Time magazine and sadly, they could have a point. Unlike the generational divides of the last century, there is a lot of research and statistics that suggest every stigma millennials have been badly labeled with. Maybe well deserved, even if it isn't through our own fault. I mean, I rely on statistics and research, and the hard facts don't lie. The volume of incidents of narcissistic personality disorder is 3 times higher for people currently in their 20s than the average. Are we really all in love with ourselves because we received 30 likes on our latest duck-face selfie? According to experts in the field of psychology, social, and behavioral science, there are very real causes of this heightened narcissism of the millennials. Millennials are the first generation that brought up on reality TV. And every year, more and more superficial, fake reality programming is shoved down our throats. We've been bombarded with killer ads advertising narcissism above everything else, portraying looks and popularity as the source of fame and happiness. In such shows, real human relationships are often shown as being degraded, cheap, disposable, and I am sure that you know what shows I'm talking about. And then, of course, there is the social media and its likes, shares, pins, and follows. Countless studies have shown that dopamine, which is the pleasure, the happy chemical, is released in the brain when we receive likes on our photos and videos and affects the brain in the same way that a hug does. You see, this system, it creates narcissism at its very core. It seems the more narcissistic we are and the more selfies we upload, the more likes we will certainly receive, and sadly, this actually makes us happier. Experts also believe that the millennials are being entitled as they believe to be inherently deserving privileges or special treatment. A recent study revealed that 40% of millennials believe they should be promoted every 2 years, even if they haven't earned it. You see, think of the school sports day. Even if you came in last place, you still get a reward or trophy, right? Well, that's just for participating. It's the taking part that counts. Countless studies have proven that this attitude creates disingenuous and deluded sense of achievement and can be deeply damaging our future expectation of what it really takes to achieve something. This philosophy is unique to our generation only, the millennials. However, Generation X's and baby boomers and those before them were all brought up in a deeply competitive environment. It was instilled within them from a young age that rewards have to be earned through hard work. They were not told that they were entitled to anything. The so-called silent generation that lived through both world wars, World War I and II, certainly didn't feel entitled. They lived through the hardest period of modern history, and everything they had earned, they had to hold on it tightly with their lives. That meant that when they brought up their children, the baby boomers, they instilled them with a strict mentality of saving every penny and extremely hard work ethics. They were told that nothing in life was free or even expected. It was all up to them. The baby boomers grew up and had children of their own. and that was Generation X. And thus, they passed on the same hard work ethics. But then, a huge shift happened in the global economy that changed everything. Generation X lived through a time of great prosperity. Industry was on the rise, and the world was finally dragging itself out of the pit it dug for itself during the war. This gave Generation Xers a can-do attitude, and so they taught their children, us, the millennials, that if you put your mind into it, you can do anything. You can become anyone and live a very successful and happy life. And of course, you are special. You see, this has created a generation of people who all believe they are special. I mean, why wouldn't they? Their parents have drilled it into their heads that they are special and unique. Millennials are completely fame obsessed too. 4 times as many teenagers would choose to be assistant of a famous person rather than the CEO of a major corporation. In a recent survey, when asked what would they like to do for a career, 54% of 16 years old answered, become a celebrity. I mean, seriously? You see, the media is purposely feeding this into this generation mind because of an agenda, which I will cover in future episodes. It's a long topic. But look how ridiculous it is now. You can simply become a celebrity for doing something silly, stupid, pathetic, and rude. You don't need to have any talent for fame these days. The days when becoming a celebrity was just a side effect of demonstrating a unique talent to the masses are far, far gone. Millennials are also lazier. We have grown up with this technology that can think for us. And therein lies the biggest problem that's ruining the lives of the young people today. Mobile phones, I know you've heard it 1,000 times. Mobile phones are bad for you. But do you really know why? And just how damaging they are for our mental health? Because the research is really terrifying. Forget about the radiation and how it's frying your brain. Now I'm focusing on the psychological and the social part of this. So let's say you're out enjoying a meal at a restaurant with your family or friends, or even just having coffee with your friends. How many times do you check your phone over the course of that meal or coffee? You see, a research was conducted by Dscout found that the average person swipes, taps, and pinches their display 2,617 times a day for a grand total of 1 million times per year. There is a top 10% of excessive users that touch their phones 5,427 times a day, which equals out to 2 million times over the course of a year. Users spent about 2 hours and 42 minutes a day touching their phone display, and the 10% spend 3 hours and 75 minutes. I wonder if we are going to evolve. I mean, we are evolving constantly, but I think our thumbs in the next 50 years probably they will be a little bit, I don't know, deformed because we're using our fingers so much on the phone. So these numbers and all that time, why? Why we are using the phone? It's not just using, it's tapping or just turning on the screen, the display. Why? Here's the answer. Because we are all addicts. I mentioned earlier that receiving likes releases dopamine, which is the happy chemical in the brain. Well, so does hundreds of other things we do with our phones. Taking a picture of your food, taking a duck face selfie, writing a status update that you just showered your dog or you just went to the bathroom and it was the best time of your life. All of these acts release dopamine, even before we upload them to the internet. Dopamine is released in advance because our brains anticipate the multitude of likes and shares it should hopefully receive, and that's what we call in NLP an anchor, or focalism in psychology. So, within seconds, we start receiving feedback. This is instant gratification, instant approval from our peers, and it goes on and on, round the clock. We receive instant gratification when we wake up, peer approval before we go to bed, and through the middle of the night. The dopamine spins and spins, flooding our brains in an everlasting continuum of self-fulfillment and reward. This only serves to keep our narcissism alive until it stops. When we upload a photo of our old shoes and it doesn't receive as much attention as we would hoped, in our minds, our peers have rejected us. We are now lost without purpose. We are now depressed. Does all that sound familiar? This cycle of massive releases of dopamine followed by periods of intense sadness? That sounds very much like an alcohol or gambling addiction, doesn't it? Or what we call in psychology, substance addiction. Whether we like it or not, we have become a generation of zombified addicts. We check our phone at dinner because we're addicted. We just want to check even if there is no notification. We just want to touch it and turn the screen on. Just turn that display on. Want to see the colors. Want to see the pixels on that screen. That's the reason we put it on the table next to our food. Putting the people we should be spending quality face-to-face time with in second priority to our little dopamine device. You see, in this era, we are so connected to each other through these apps, which you can call anyone, anywhere in the world, anytime you want. But yet, we're not connected. We are so close to each other, but we are too far from each other. It's the reason we don't talk to each other anymore. If you want to talk to your sibling, or if you want to talk to your partner or anyone in the same house, but different rooms, how many times you don't knock on their door, you just call them or send them a text message? Well, I know sometimes it's easier to just send them a text, but if you think about it on the bigger scale, if you think of the big picture, it's the reason we don't talk to people on the bus, on the street, or on a train, at school, at work. We instead indulge totally in our addiction whenever we can, because we are truly addicted. And most of us don't even realize it. And many of us don't even admit it. You see, we are the product of our environment. We grew up in a time of rapid technological advancement. As long as mobile devices continue to generate enormous profits, then companies will continue to develop new things and social networks that provide instant dopamine fixes. We no longer need to wait for our next fix. It's instant. We have Snapchat, we have Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Pinterest, WhatsApp, and many other applications. Oh, by the way, have you liked us on Facebook and followed us on Twitter yet? It's the Mindtech Institute. Please do it now. I started checking. I'm due to my dopamine fix. Well, the point is, any of those social media platforms can provide us the next dopamine fix whenever we desire. It's available. You see, here's why millennials, my generation, think that our parents are so tough on us and they don't want us to do whatever we like, as they are some joy killer monsters. But the truth is, our parents didn't have these distractions. They had to put time and effort into receiving the approval of their peers. They had to have meaningful conversations and form of strong, deep, and long-lasting relationships with both their friends and partners to get their dopamine fix. At work, they had to work day after day, and when that promotion came along, my God, had they earned it. The truth is, millennials have become immensely impatient. We are so used to instant gratification that if we don't get a promotion 20 minutes after we start a new job, we get bored of it because it isn't the sort of timeline we are used to. If we don't get that quick reward from work, we start to feel worthless and depressed. But it's not our fault. And I really don't like to say that because that gives you the notion of an escape from responsibility. But really, if you're a millennial, it's not your fault. You have grown up on this addiction of dopamine, which you can easily get whenever you like. This have affected us not just at work, but also in relationships. We grew up wanting everything now, and we must get it now. And if we don't, many millennials, they lose their sense of loyalty because we've been blinded by our addiction to others' approval and rewards. There are lots of alternatives. There is VR, virtual reality, or virtual relationship. You can even raise a pet virtually now. Mark my words, if we keep going as we are going now, soon enough we will not be able to differentiate between what is reality and what is not. And we already started to have this now. And this is serious. Maybe I will start my next episode, or maybe the episode after, about this topic. Because lots of people now are getting confused between what is real and what is not. And we'll get in details about this because even our dreams have changed. Our dreams at night have changed. More about that in future episodes. However, should we be worried about the future of a world run by these so terrible millennials? These narcissistic, self-obsessed, lazy, entitled young adults who want success given to them on a golden plate? Who cannot tie down a relationship or achieve satisfaction in the workplace because they are too addicted to social media? Well, here is a positive side. Yes, we are millennials, young and have our issues, but we're actually no different to the last generation, Generation X. Generation X were also labeled as entitled and lazy when they were young. You see, as a society, we need to recognize that the world has completely changed, both technologically and culturally, over the past 20 years. And millennials are the first adopters of this strange new style, where you can build a billion-dollar business from your bedroom and run it even while you're taking your phone with you to the bathroom, if you put your mind to it. All our faults are merely symptoms of trying to adapt to a completely strange new way of life that our parents didn't have to deal with. We face new and unique pressures, stresses, and challenges. But my whole point is that we need to find better ways to cope with them rather than indulging in social media. Also, despite all our faults and stigmas, there are actually a lot of good and positive things to say about millennials. And I'm not saying that because I am part of that generation. Absolutely not. What I'm trying to do here, I'm trying to show the millennials, because there are lots of problems are happening between millennials and their parents. And what I'm trying to do here, I'm just trying to shed the light on those issues which both of them, parents and millennials, can understand each other, rather than not knowing what the problem is and they think it's them, because it's not. And as I said, there are lots of good and positive things to say about millennials, which is hardly mentioned in the media. For example, did you know that millennials are the most tolerant generation ever? Let me say that again. Millennials are the most tolerant generation ever. Research has shown that prejudice has fallen with each generation. Millennials are far less racist, homophobic, and sexist than their parents. Pew Research, which is the Pew Research Center, asked adults aged between 18 to 29 what their most important priority was during their lifetime. 52% answered being a good parent. 30% said have a successful marriage. 21% replied helping others in need. That's not me saying that. That's the Pew Research Center. Now, that doesn't sound like a generation that is completely narcissist, does it? And our incapability to settle into a normal 9-to-5 job may not be entirely due to laziness or self-love. Maybe because all we want is just more than that monotonous normality of conformity, working for some heartless corporate giant who really don't care about anything but his clan of elites. You see, research shows that millennials are the most entrepreneurial generation ever, encouraged by young do-it-yourself success stories like Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg. We might not agree with everything that Musk or Zuckerberg does, but as a generation, we have an unstoppable appetite to achieve something big and make an impact. Yes, I agree that this mentality and behavior might be proving difficult for large corporations, as I have witnessed through the corporate training which we provide at the Mindtech Institute to some corporations to improve their sales skills and customer service. But this generation is changing the world in ways our parents could have never imagined. Well, of course, there is no doubt that we need to spend more time interacting with one another, improving our communication with each other, and certainly spend less time on social media, because all that research has shown that it does a negative impact on us socially and psychologically. But we also need to acknowledge that the world is rapidly changing. Millennials certainly have their faults, but they are also contributing to the world in so many incredible ways, just like the generation before us and the generation before them. Change has always come and always will. It's certain. So let us all be the change, and let us all make a good and positive change for us and for the generations that follow. Once again, I have gone over our usual runtime, and I think I should wrap it up now. That's it for today. Thank you for listening. The Dynamic Thinking Project podcast is released every Friday. If you have any questions, you can email me. The email is on our website, themindtechinstitute.com. Until next time, take care and enjoy your weekend. This is Adam Muselli signing out.